Good Monday to you, everybody in Com 785. Welcome to week, boom, 4. Hey, happy and blessed Memorial Day to you. I know that today is a day off from class, but I wanted to get this video to you today anyway to give you sort of a jump on this week's assignment, okay? And I hope that you're having, or I suppose if you're watching this on Tuesday, that you had a relaxing and blessed Memorial Day weekend. Maybe spend it with family. My family, we enjoyed a bicycle trip Saturday, Sunday, an overnight thing where you bike out to a place and you sleep out and you camp and you come back. And then today, I think we're just gonna kind of take it easy. Put the flag out. Remember those who have given of themselves and their life in service of our country. Okay. All right. So I want to talk about the readings for this week and then specifically the assignment for this week. Over in the course content folder for week 4, you'll find the readings. There are 3 of them. Okay. There's the usual suspects in your strategic communication book. All right. There's a selection from Cialdini. Okay. All right. And then I've given you a chapter. Let me just reach back here in the form of a PDF from this excellent book by Rice and Atkin called Public Communication Campaign. All right. This is another one that you might want to have on your shelf if you're going to ply your trade in strategic communication. Okay. Well, the focus for this week's readings and the assignment is taking the research, that you read about last week, and then applying it to actually structuring a public relations campaign. Now, last week, and specifically in the strategic communications book in Williams et al. Oh, by the way, excuse me. Let's not get things out of order here. That's better. Now you're sufficiently caffeinated, instructor, and the Griffin Cup. So anyway, last week, and specifically in Wilson et al. Strategic Communications, you read about types of research. Now, for those of you here at Regent, you've had research classes in quantitative and qualitative. Much of this should have been just review. Okay, it's old hat. But this week, what you're going to read about in all 3 of these sources is how to take that research and apply it to a strategic communication campaign. So with that in mind, I've given you your second essay, and we're going to have 8 of them as the course goes on. Instead, in the place of questions. Okay. So if you go over to the discussion board, once you've finished with the course content folder, okay, and click on week 4, you'll see the essay number 2, and the title of which is What's the Plan? Okay. Let me just go through it with you very quickly and tell you what I'm after, what I'm looking for, and what it is that you need to do. Okay. So when you open it up, and I don't know why it's got all this white as background. Who knows? All right. Last week, week 3, you read Wilson et al. About communication research methods. This week, you will read chapter 4 of Wilson et al. And the select pages from Rice and Atkins, Public Communication Campaigns. Both of this week's selections are focused on applying research to a PR plan. And that's what you're going to be asked to do in this essay. So I've given you 3 stories, all of which, I spent last week trolling the news, looking for stories. And I'm like, okay, since we're in the business of education here, let's find 3 stories that relate to education. So I've given you 3 stories here with links to the stories. And if there's, sometimes they take the links and they move them around, just grab the title and Google it and try to find it in another source. All right. And if it's not exactly word for word like the link that I've given you, that's irrelevant. All right. What you're after is the gist of the story. So consider the 3 stories. Each of them concerns education, and each features an institution or individual in crisis. So in each of these 3 stories, the first one is latest GOP hopeful DeSantis blazing a trail on book bans in Republican-controlled states. That's, I think, from a British Canadian paper. Number 2, Tuberville, and this is a senator, says he doesn't know if inner city teachers can, quote, read and write. Maybe not the best way to put it. And then number 3, how funders, school leaders can step up to combat philanthropic disparities faced by historic Black colleges and universities. Okay, so in each of these 3 cases, you have an individual, DeSantis and Tuberville, that are facing a crisis of public relations. On the one hand, someone's saying this guy's running around promoting book banning. On the other hand, here's a guy that may have, put things not in the best way. That is, say, well, I don't even know if these people can read or write. These inner city teachers, okay. And then when you read the story about historical Black colleges and universities, one of the central points that you'll find is that there is a usage gap for technology and a publicity gap that is affecting historically Black colleges and universities. That is, HBCUs are not using technology like social media. They are not affecting the same type of outreach as other universities. And as a consequence, they are suffering by way of gifts. Okay, and there's actually a lot of complexity in that story as to what the issue is. All right, so you read those 3, boom, boom, boom. Now, for your second essay, here's what I want you to do. Imagine that you work for a PR firm. All right. Now, I can tell you before I begin what you're being asked to do, in most instances, even in fairly large outfits, you would be doing all of the following jobs. I've cordoned off the research for this particular essay, and the only thing I'm asking you to do is to write up the research plan and not write up a whole PR plan. You don't have to do that. You're just writing up the research. So I want to be very clear on that. Okay. So anyway, for your second, but in most organizations that you work for, you would be drawing up the research and you would be writing up the PR plan or even the PR statement. All right. Not here, not for this. All right. So we're going to pretend you've got this big department. There's like 4 or 5 of you. Let's pretend. Okay. And communication is rarely staffed that way. Man, there's like 1 or 2 of you. Okay. But I digress. All right. For your second essay, imagine you work for a PR firm. Your firm has been hired to write a positive and persuasive PR statement concerning one of the above stories. So just imagine that, they've taken on one of the clients listed above, either the 2 individuals or the institutions. Okay. You get to choose which one that would be. As part of the PR team, you have been tasked with conducting the research for the PR statement. So here's how you should proceed. First and foremost, go to page 68 in your text, and you're going to see a communication matrix. This is a very common. Now, I can tell you, as someone who's done this work, I have never actually written out a matrix like this, saying, here is the matrix. This is just a sort of a common format as you rough it out. Okay, it's over on page 68, communication matrix, right there. I want you to follow that format. All right. Okay, so using the strategic communication matrix found on page 68 in Wilson, take a look at each of those 3 sections. All right, you have a background section, a situation analysis section, and a core problem and opportunity sections. In many ways, this communication matrix mirrors what's called a SWOT analysis in business, and that is when you're people that do business degrees, and maybe you have, and so this sounds really familiar, and you're looking at a business opportunity or you're looking at an expenditure of capital, you do what's called an SWOT analysis. Okay, you take a look at opposition and these sorts of things that could challenge the project, things that will help the project, things that could shut it down, and how you respond. Okay, this is similar. Okay, so go to page 68. Start with the background section. For the background section, what I want you to do is I want you to hit the World Wide Web, and I want you to find and when I say research, I'm not talking about quantitative stuff. You're not running a survey, and you don't have time for that. Okay, This isn't you compiling the data. This is you reaching out and finding data that's been compiled. All right. So I want you to research at least 3 facts or persuasive opinions that could assist in making the case to help your client. All right. So for example, let's say that you chose story number 1, this rather slanted portrayal of Ron DeSantis's campaign, because he's running for president. And so what I doubt is he's using the run for president to cloak his attempt to, ban and burn books nationwide. Okay. But we'll put that aside. So let's say you chose story number 1. You might cite news stories demonstrating that Governor DeSantis is not, quote, banning books, but only supporting parents concerned with what their children are reading in school. Okay? So in other words, you'd say, oh, all right, so this is what the critics are saying. This is what this news story is saying. You don't have to write that up, but I mean, if you do in your backgrounds, you'll at least mention it in the background section. You'll say, okay, well, no, it's really what we could really tell the people. We're going to put together a PR statement. Like, no. We're not running around banning books. We're looking at inappropriate and if you read the article, spoiler alert, sexually inappropriate material that is not age appropriate, right? And so what the governor is doing is responding to the concerns of parents about that. You might find evidence that shows the governor is empowering parents that feel like their voice is being taken away by local school boards, so on and so forth. I'm not going to give you all the answers as to what you want to find, but you get the drift. Okay. So you need 3 of those, and write up imagine you were preparing this material to hand to someone who's going to write this out in full. So you write maybe a sentence or 2 saying, okay, no, this is what the governor is really doing. And then you have the link to the story. 3 of those. Okay. Or for example, I give you here in the assignment, let's say that you took story number 3 about the philanthropic gap, the donation gap for historically Black colleges and universities. Okay. You might look for data that demonstrates the harm that would befall our higher educational system if if an HBCU failed. Okay. Or you might look for data that shows, why members of the African American community who are of means are not responding philanthropically. Why aren't they donating? Okay. One of the interesting things about this story, that is funding for historically Black colleges, is the level of affluence in the African American community is going up, and it's actually by way of sort of a total net. It's done better. That is the total level of financial security and affluence coming out of COVID than other minority groups, and there's some reasons for that. I'm not going to give you here, but that could be part of your research. That could be part of what you find. Okay, so you need 3 facts or positive statements of opinion. Okay, now you might be saying, well, which one is it? Which do you want us to find, facts or opinion? Well, when you're dealing with public relations, the one can be the other. Okay, but you have to deal with this prudently. And this is part of what I'm going to be grading you on is, do you find facts and opinions that would be persuasive if you were handing this to someone to write it up into a PR statement? Okay, so that's the next thing that you do. Then after that, write the situation analysis for the scenario you've selected, and you'll get a description of what goes into a situation analysis in the textbook on page 68. All right. And then write up what you believe are the core problems, opportunities for the situation you selected, which is also in that matrix on page 68. Okay. So after you completed the above 3 steps, advise the PR writer whether or not, in your opinion, The use of fear as a motivating factor in the PR statement would prove useful to make a supportive case for your client. If so, how? If not, why? Now, why do I say that? That seems like, a little off script. Well, what you're going to read in the text that I've supplied you from Rice and Atkins is the use of fear to motivate behavior. Now, I can tell you again, as someone who's done this, never, ever have I, one, used the word fear in a PR statement, or two, more importantly, use the word fear in proposing how a statement should be written. The thesaurus is your friend. So I've used words like, we ought to make the public aware of that this is a concern. This is a situation that people should know about because the danger is ... People need to be aware of this because it's a threat to ... I've never ever said, oh, hey, let's write a PR statement in which we try to scare people. Okay, that just, it's interesting how this works. Sorry if I look puffy. I am allergy season again. Everybody in the room knows what they're doing and putting together. And this is journalism too, by the way, just stock and trade. Everybody in the room knows what they're doing by way of writing the PR statement. They know that they're going to play on the fears and concerns of the audience, but nobody comes right out and says, we're going to play on the fears of the audience. That's the biz. Okay. So what I want you to tell me is playing on the concerns of the audience appropriate? Is it appropriate in the sense, is it beneficial? And you'll read in Rice and Atkins some ethical considerations around this tactic. I'm going to let you make the call. All right. If you say, no, this isn't appropriate because this is unethical and it's never appropriate, then that's what you're going to tell me. You're going to say, this is why we're not going to use this. Or, hey, there are situations in which people should be made aware of something that's going on because it is a threat. It is a problem to them. And if you live in, certain cities in Michigan and your drinking water is not fit to drink because it's contaminated with sewage or heavy metals or whatever the problem was up there, yeah, you should say something to people like, yo, hey, don't drink the water because you're going to get really sick. All right. So there are times in which, presenting statements that trigger people's concerns is not only appropriate, but necessary. You tell me, in this situation, is it appropriate? And is it beneficial to the campaign? Okay. So your completed write-up, free from grammatical and typographical errors. Okay. It doesn't have to be any longer than 500 to 700 words. Essentially one, just basically what you wrote before. All right. 500, did I say 5? I'm sorry, 500 to 700 words. Okay. Now, the way I want you to do this is just like the way you did the last essay, start a new thread. Okay. This assignment is not due until next Monday at midnight. So you'll have all the week and the weekend, but please be kind to your classmates. Get your assignment put together and in there in time so they can read it, your report, your write-up, and give you some feedback. Okay. Don't everybody wait till Monday night at like 11:45 or something, and then you dump it and nobody can say a darn thing. Okay. So tomorrow, or maybe later today, depending on how my schedule goes, I will post the second video that we always do, in which I talk about the readings from last week, and we'll go through your answers, and I'll talk a little bit about your essay number 1. All right. But until then, have a blessed Memorial Day, everybody. I hope you're able to spend time with your family, and remember those who have given their lives for the sake of our freedom, and one of which is the freedom to have the sort of discussions that we do. All right. So we are very, very grateful. And if you are If you have a family member who's lost their life in the service of our country, we especially thank and bless you. Okay, everybody, have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will see you on Blackboard. God bless.